Canadian troops will soon be taking part in a new peacekeeping mission. CBC News has learned they will be heading to the West African nation of Mali, where ISIS and Al-Qaeda are both active. The Trudeau government is expected to formally announce details of the mission on Monday. Canada's last African peacekeeping mission was to Ethiopia and Eritrea. It ended 15 years ago. And for reaction to this, we're joined now by retired Lieutenant-General Roméo Dallaire. He's a man with many titles, also former Canadian senator. Best known among them, perhaps, was Force Commander of the UN Assistance Mission in Rwanda. He's also the founder of Romeo Dallaire Child Soldiers Initiative, and he joins us from Quebec City. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Dallaire. Thank you for being with us. We've learned that Canada will be sending peacekeeping troops to Mali. Initially, what is your reaction to this news?
I'm overjoyed by the fact that a decision has been taken, that we're putting fact into promises, and that we're deploying technological capabilities that we've built up over the years, particularly the Chinook helicopters, and that we're going to be in a support role as we move our way back into peacekeeping.
And the particular area where we know these troops will be sent, where this peacekeeping mission is expected to go, Mali, we know is known for being a dangerous place for peace support. It's actually held the distinction of being the deadliest peace support operation in the books. As of the end of February, 162 peacekeepers have been killed in Mali since the mission was established in 2013. So can you give us a sense then of what Canadian troops are walking into?
There is no doubt that the mission is demanding and that the task is significant for the whole force. Remember, there's over 13,000 troops there and about 2,000 police deployed by the UN. And where we're deployed, or where we're deploying, is one in support of the combat. That is to say, providing material, medical supplies, logistics, helicopter transportation, and so on. So we're not sending troops into the combat itself, but in the support of the combat. And I think that's a responsible way of moving back into what peacekeeping is today, which is far more complex, more ambiguous. The nature of peacekeeping, particularly when we see the extensive use of children, and children that are being used in all facets of employment in regards to trying for these forces to take an upper hand. So we're, one hand, going into support, and I think that's excellent. The other hand is the Canadian forces are leading the world right now with the reform of the training and doctrine in regards to facing child soldiers. So that is a sort of a backdrop to what we're doing.
And when you talk about peacekeeping itself becoming more complex, Mali is also an area where ISIS and Al-Qaeda are both active now. So given that, how would you define success for this mission?
The mission will be successful when, in fact, as we see in Iraq and in Syria, when, in fact, those forces are defeated. And that's a fact of the conflicts, because we're into conflict resolution. We're into trying to resolve conflicts and terminate conflicts. And in those conflicts, there is, of course, fighting going on. And that's why we're providing support capabilities for the troops that are meeting these forces. Now, Al-Qaeda and also ISIS are using extensively children, and young boys mostly, but children. And so having an ability, as the Canadian forces have acquired from the Child Soldier Initiative and what we have been able to offer also to the NATO forces, is an ability that, should scenarios find themselves, they will be qualified and more capable than many other countries in how to handle and diffuse child soldier situations. But then again, we're seeing in Mali an effort to, in fact, bring stability. As an example, they say they signed the Safe Schools Declaration, and there has been an agreement signed with the CMA over there, so the school scenario is going to be protected. They've also signed the Vancouver Principles, in which we're going to be training their forces ultimately on how to be more effective facing children and diffusing that complexity that exists in these conflicts.
Now, we've spoken about how dangerous this particular area can be, and you've been very open about your experiences with PTSD, which you attribute to your experience in Rwanda. So do you think that Canada has enough or does enough to support its troops on these missions abroad and then when they return home?
We are nothing less than light years where we were, and not only because of the scale of support that's been going in, but by the attention of the public, by the much revised Veterans Affairs Department also in this regard, the Canadian Forces recognizing it, and in fact, even the training that the Child Soldier Initiative, my initiative, has been providing the Canadian Forces, and the doctrine information is there to reduce the number of casualties because of PTSD, because facing children creates an ethical and moral dilemma, and because of the Vancouver Principles and the Prime Minister and the Canadian government and the Minister of Defense extensively asking the Child Soldier Initiative to engage in moving the Art 6 that way, we believe firmly that we're going to reduce casualties by giving better tools to the troops and able to face these children.
And Mr. Dallaire, I have one final quick question for you. UN peacekeepers have a controversial history to contend with in places like the Central African Republic and Haiti. So how confident are you that the UN has moved beyond that history?
I think that that's a continued effort that's required. There is an interesting effort being done by Code Blue, in which Stephen Lewis is involved, and I've been helping also in that area, where we are holding the UN accountable for taking actions and bringing in new ways of holding people accountable in the theater of operations and not only back home. Because if you don't show that the people, locals, that you're actually taking action in this regard, it doesn't give the credibility, nor does it return the credibility to your force. And so better handling children without killing them simply, but in fact providing new tactical skills to the forces to do that, reducing the abuse of vulnerable populations, women particularly, and children. Those are elements that will build up the force to be more effective.
Mr. Dallaire, we appreciate you taking time to speak with us this afternoon. That is retired Lieutenant General and former Canadian Senator Romeo Dallaire in Quebec City.